I can support it. The key point there is I can support it.
But 2 people on that 15 say no.
All right?
What is that?
You work with them. I'll give you some examples. You work with them, you do your very best to do it. Now, if they're sincere, you continue to work with them. If they're just there because they've got an agenda, then you treat them with what I call loving indifference. Because people come to parish councils for many different reasons, right? Some come because they truly want to serve. Others come because they want to wear the badge behind the Bangari and live by the title. But the only reason that any parish council member should be there is because they want to serve. Christ set that example for us. He was the greatest servant leader of all time. Anybody on the parish council should be a servant leader. They should set the example. Because if the parish council members don't set the example, why should anybody else? If the parish council members are not attending church, why should anybody else? If they're not contributing to the stewardship program, why should anybody else? So it goes on. So there are circumstances and there are times when you can't do consensus. For example, if you need a legal document and you've got to show that it was voted, you've got to take the vote. If you've got somebody like you just mentioned, 2 guys out of 15 have got an agenda, you do the very best you can. I'm going to give you an example. In my parish, we had a founding member, the first president of the parish council, and his wife was working for the priest, and she was the secretary. And after about 3 years, she and the priest got to a point where they were totally incompatible and at loggerheads with one another. So as the parish council, we decided we had to let the secretary go. Now we're dealing with a founding member of the parish, the first president, it's his wife, and we have to let her go. And that was the job of the parish council. So we sat down and we decided we would try to do it the best way we could, in a Christian manner and with the least amount of fasaria that we could have. And 11 out of 12 of us were in agreement, and 1 guy wasn't. And we had to do this pretty quickly. So we tried that evening. We stayed from 7 until 11 that night, and we couldn't come to consensus. We couldn't convince our one person. So we shelved it and we came back to it the next day. Same night we did the same thing. And in a 3-hour parish council meeting, he convinced all the other 11 of us that we should do it his way. And we did, and it worked. I'll give you one more and then I'll stop. We built a church. A $4.3 million church was paid for by 150 families. And we got to a point where we got the concept of the church. We had the architect build us a conceptual design. We knew we wanted to do it. We had the enthusiasm to do it. We had some money in the bank. So we got hung up at council because some of us wanted a 250-seat church. Some of us wanted a 750-seat church, and the others wanted about 480. 4 months. 4 months it took us to reach consensus. We'd work on it, we couldn't get to consensus, we'd park on it to the next meeting. We'd work on it again, and we met the first Tuesday of every month and the last Thursday of every month. After 120 days, we finally got to consensus. But being such an emotional issue, we said, we just can't do this ourselves. We know we've got to go to the General Assembly and be united, because if we go to the General Assembly and we're not united, who's going to pay for the church? So finally, we said, we will invite everybody else who wants to make a presentation in the parish. As long as they register with us before the meeting, we'll have them get up too if they want to. We had parish council made a presentation and 6 other people. After a 5.5-hour General Assembly, in the process of elimination, we ended up walking out of there united and with a decision, and they accepted the decision of the parish council. For that reason, everybody was united in paying for the church. We paid off that $4.3 million church in about 5 years.
How big is your church?
Now it's about 400 members. Back then it was about families. Back then it was about 180. So
How many?
How many? We built a 480-seat church. So the kind of leadership practice in a parish determines the kind of parish that it is. All right? And you can tell leadership that's effective how? By those that are being led. The Holy Trinity is alive in the parish and in each of our lives. If we truly believe that the Holy Trinity really exists, we have to know and understand that everything we have came from God. And what we're doing with stewardship is giving back to God. The most precious commodity we have to give is not money. It's our time and our talent. The time that you give today to the church, you don't get back. It's your most precious commodity. And that's what we should be going after. We should be going after people, their involvement, their salvation, and that you do that, and stewardship will take care of itself. So, our blessings come from God in the past, now, and in the future. Our birth, our family, our environment, our talents, our opportunities, our health and support, our unseen and unknown blessings. These all come from God. The environment that we live in, the air that we breathe. And God doesn't partially give. It's a total give. He doesn't cut the oxygen off halfway through the day. And our response needs to be the same. If our response is the same, again, stewardship is going to take care of itself. Right? God came to earth being born as man. He taught and showed us how to love God and how to love one another, which I've been talking about all morning. He was crucified and rose on the third day, resulting in an invitation for a new relationship with God, and thereby we are given the opportunity to be with Him for eternity. Right? We develop our relationship with God by participating in the services, the sacraments, we fast, spiritual development opportunities, personal prayer, personal devotion, and practicing Christian stewardship. Right? So, Father Frank Morangus, I'm not going to go through most of these slides because I want to leave some time for us to interact. He wrote a book about motivations. And in these slides that are coming, I have covered those 4 motives. But our actions are based on motivations, right? From the time we're born as children, we are motivated to do certain things. We're motivated when we're very young to do, our motives are to get something in return, something personal. What is it? We're usually hungry, right? So when we were kids, we cried because we were hungry, so we wanted something in return. Now we've got people who come to the church for the same reason. They come to church and their method of giving is to get something back. Right? Now if it's just for personal stuff, then that motivation we should ignore. However, people come for social motivations. They come for altruistic motivations, right? And they come for spiritual motivations. Those people who come to our churches and our parishes for the social motivation, to do good to one another, for one another, to be with one another, those motivations we should encourage. We should support those. Those that come for altruistic reasons, because they want to do good, and they can get that good, they can get that feeling of doing good within our parishes, we should have the programs available, the ministry work, for those people to be able to do that. So we're going back to ministry again. And those that come for spiritual development and spiritual connection, that's what we're all about. Why do people go to monasteries? They go there because they want to be spiritually connected, and they seem to find that because when they go there, they're not asked for money, they're not asked for a stewardship card, right? They're asked because they want to be connected to God. So that's what we have to provide. So in running our ministries, in making the parish work, these are the things that we should be concentrating on. And all of these motivates, the self-centered motive, the social motive, the altruistic, and the spiritual, they're all covered in this. And anybody who wants this presentation, by the way, if you'll just give me your business card, I'll make sure we send it to you electronically. All right? I've covered most of these. So there's the impact and motive development, the relationship, now, let's talk about, I'm going to talk a little bit about stewardship and the nuts and bolts of stewardship and what we need to do to have an effective stewardship program. And I'm going to talk about what we do as a parish and what should be in the parish to make it all work. All right? First of all, we need a motivated stewardship chair. And when I mean motivated and dedicated, and somebody who's going to give up their time and their talent and make that sacrificial effort to make that stewardship program work. We need to have the priest's participation. If the priest is not participating in the meetings of stewardship, you got a tough road to hoe. So the priest and the parish council have all got to be involved. The stewardship committee needs to be working very hard the first year, just as hard the second and every year thereafter. That's what it takes. It needs to plan. From the beginning of the year to the end of the year, there should be a program in place that develops stewardship messages constantly and repeatedly. That develops, and when I mean stewardship messages, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about people doing good. Recognize people that do good for one another, that make that extra sacrificial time and talent to the church. Those things need to be recognized. And then they need to plan through the year, and especially from September to all the way through the stewardship drive. Now, how do we do that? Oh, again, I go back to my parish. On September the 1st, and before it, at least 2 to 3 months before it, we plan what we call homecoming. The start of the ecclesiastical year on September the 1st. And on that Sunday, or the closest Sunday to September the 1st, the stewardship committee hosts a picnic. We have some members of our parish spend all night cooking Boston butts so that we have barbecue for the picnic the next day. And that is put on by the stewardship committee in appreciation of everything that the parishioners have given during the previous year, the ecclesiastical year. So it's a way of saying thank you. All right? So it's a big deal. We have games for the kids. It's free. There's no charge. It's put on by the stewardship committee, and we're saying thank you for all that you've done for us. Now, from September the 1st until Stewardship Sunday, which Stewardship Sunday is usually the 3rd Sunday in November, we plan and we work towards Stewardship Sunday. So how do we do that? Well, first we make sure that our stewardship cards are sent out to every parishioner or everybody that's on our mailing list at least 4 weeks before Stewardship Sunday. And that stewardship card, which I'll get to in a minute, shows more than just one line for money. Right? It shows many ways that a parishioner can get involved in the church work, how they can get involved in ministry, which is what I've been talking about all day. So here is a responsibility of the chair for stewardship. You'll see it on the screen behind you. And I'm sorry, Drew, I'll take care of it. And so we've gathered everybody together. We've sent out the stewardship cards. Now, what do we do between now and Stewardship Sunday? We make sure that we talk about it. We ask the priest to coincide his sermons towards stewardship. And again, we're not going to talk about money. We're going to talk about time and talent. We're going to talk about what the parish means to parishioners who've been there. We're going to ask for people to come up after church and give testimony on what the parish has meant to them and to their lives. Those things are really powerful. The youth that have been to summer camp and have come back and they've had their lives changed because they've met people who are going to be their friends for the rest of their lives. These are the things we need to do and talk about stewardship. Now we get to, after doing all this work, messages after church on Sunday. We had children bring up baskets of fruit and bring them to the CLA to signify giving of first fruits. So there's many things you can do creatively, think outside of the box, and get people prepared for Stewardship Sunday. So all this time we've been asking people to fill out their stewardship cards, bring them to Stewardship Sunday. When we get to Stewardship Sunday and the church service is over, the parish council and the stewardship chair come out with the baskets. And now we're going to collect the stewardship cards. Whose is the first card that should go in the basket? Priest. The second? Parish council president, and then the parish council. Third, all the stewardship committee and the stewardship chair. Before we go and collect from the congregation at large. So now we've done that, we've demonstrated, we've set the example, the leadership has made their pledges. Now we collect from the whole parish congregation, and then we take those baskets to the CLA, to the priest, so he can bless and say a prayer of thanks for the contributions and the pledges we've just made. Now, is it finished there? No, it hasn't finished there, because we still have a lot of people that didn't bring those cards to church. So we know that the stewardship drive is going to be over by February, because in February we're going to have our first General Assembly of the year, and that's when we're going to look at our budget, and we're going to look at what we've got in stewardship pledges and see if those two numbers get anywhere near one another, or are we going to have to rely on the festival, etc., etc. So it's important that we let the community know what we need to run the church, what we need to run the parish. If we've done our work correctly at the General Assembly in October, we're going to tell everybody, here's our budget, here's what we need to get from stewardship. In my parish, we leave that number blank. So what it does, it causes a big deficit at the bottom of the budget, but it also tells everybody this is what we need to make stewardship work. So during that time, after Stewardship Sunday to the end of February, is follow-up work. To the point where we assign people to people who know one another. So if it's for Papadakos, he's my kuparo, they give that to me. If it's for Kakoyani, it's to somebody else who knows him, is connected with him. And these is the stewardship committee making those follow-up calls, asking those people if they're going to pledge. Now, I said earlier that we have a stewardship card. There it is right there. You notice on this stewardship card, there's two lines, one for the general fund and one for the building fund. And it says that we are donating this for God's work. There's no signature. We're not making a contract with God. All right? One line for money. These lines are for time and talent. You've got a whole bunch of them. There's at least 60 ways that somebody can get involved in giving of their time and their talent. So when we get a stewardship card that comes back in and just the money's filled out and there's no time and talent, we send it back, we say it's not complete. That's how much emphasis we give on the time and the talent. Remember, we need people in ministry. The whole message is about ministry and getting people involved in the work of the church. It doesn't stop there. So here's what we've done now. Remember, we go back to what we did with that ministry in the beginning. We've got a ministry leader. We gave him a liaison to work with him, right? We put him in the budget. He's got goals and objectives for the year. Guess what we just did here? We gave him the arms and the legs that he's going to need to run his ministry. Because every one of these, if they're filled out, that name and that phone number should be assigned to the ministry that it's tied to. The worst thing we can possibly do is do this whole program, get people giving of their time and their talent, and we don't follow through with it. That's the worst thing we can possibly do. So very quickly, that's what we need to do with stewardship. We don't go after the money. We go after the time and the talent. We go after the individual. And the reason we're going after the individual is we want him to save his soul just like we want to save our soul. All right? I want to give you an example. My Metropolitan Alexios did something very special for me and my family one time. And I went to thank him. And he said, "Don't thank me. I did it for selfish reasons." I said, "What could you have done? How could that be selfish?" He said, "I did it to save my soul." So I'm hoping that all of us can get to that point where we do this work for selfish reasons and we encourage other people to become selfish in the same way as well. Now I'll open it up for questions, and George and I are both at your disposal.
Thank you for your presentation, George. Confidentiality in terms of those figures, how important is that, and how does that apply in a big parish? Some parishes speak about, well, volunteers, whoever can come in and count and so forth. Is that promoted? Is that important? How does that fit into this?
I think confidentiality is really important, and the only person who needs to know what somebody's giving is the stewardship chair and the priest, of course. If there's a problem with a parishioner and they cannot meet their obligation, that's why we use the word estimated on the stewardship card. We estimate we will give. And so if there's a problem, that should be handled by the priest and only by the priest. But I think it's important. Some people have a different opinion. Some people think we should let it be known who gave a big donation. But I think what happens between that individual and God should be confidential. Now, one thing that's important on this stewardship card, we should be asking for money not to the parish, but to God for God's work. Because what happens if people think they're giving to the parish? First time they have a problem with either the priest or a parish council member, what do? Knee-jerk, they pull their pledge. So it shouldn't be to the parish. It is to God and it's for God's work. That answer your question?
No, I just wanted, should that be promoted to the people so that they know it's confidential?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Angelo.
I come from a very small parish, and I started stewardship because I realized you cannot survive on dues. And this goes back over 30 years, okay? And at that time, there was not that much information out on stewardship and how to handle and what have you. But anyway, the way that I did it was I picked 3 people in the parish that I felt were very confidential. I talked to them individually. And before I started the period, I went to an old yaya that had grandchildren and a lot of siblings in the parish. And I told her that the only way the church could survive, because she lived right across the street from us, you want to see it close? Oh, God, don't tell me that. Because he moved, you know, and all that. Okay. Anyway, I told her of the plan about stewardship. And I said, the only way it'll work is if people like you convey it to your children, grandchildren, and it will work. So she went along with it. So I had that blessing, so to speak. When I established the program, I had just the 3 people. No amount of money was to be let out. It's primarily the priest not to know who gave what. And the reason for that, and I had a lot of priests over the years challenge me. And I said, you know, Father, there's a reason that I did it this way. And the reason is, if people know that you know what they give, they're going to say, oh, he's talking to her because she gives more money than I do. It puts him in a bad spot. He really has no reason. And I tell the priest, your part in this stewardship is to motivate the people to be stewards of the church. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to do in this whole thing. So I don't think the priest should be involved in it. The only thing that we do as far as the giving is we put levels of giving. We don't categorize them high steward, low steward, or in between steward, or anything like that. We just say X number of people give in this category, between 100 and 300, 500. Next category, 1,000, 2,000, and on. And that's all. No names, no nothing.
I disagree with you only on one thing. I think the priest, if he wants to know, should know.
Now,
Now, I understand. I said we're going to disagree.
I understand.
Now, I've had priests who definitely didn't want to know. They said, I don't want to know. I don't want it to influence me on who I'm dealing with. So he didn't want to know. But I think if the priest is going to have to handle and take care of the people that have got financial difficulty, I think he's the best one qualified to be able to do that, and for that reason he needs to know.
Well, the stewardship committee, if they run into a situation, they can ask for help, not by individual names, but to motivate. And that's the key. It's been very successful, I will tell you that.
If it's
okay?
working for you, congratulations.
Just like to make a comment. How many of you Reverend Fathers have a junior stewardship program at your church? A junior stewardship program for your youth? No? It's a good base and it's a good place to start. We had it at our parish years ago. The Presbytera, she wasn't a Presbytera then, but the daughter of the Sunday school directors started a junior stewardship program for Sunday school with loud colored envelopes, a gospel message in language that they could understand, and then they had a little plastic pin that said they were a junior steward of the parish of St. John the Baptist in Des Plaines, Illinois. It worked because my son wouldn't go to church unless he had his button. And they took a lot of pride, and they understood that money was not to come from the parents' pocket that morning, because it was an educational situation where we would talk to the parishes, the parents in the parish, and say, this is something that they have to understand, that they have to give of their own. And we set down some tenets, worked fabulous for years. It got lost somewhere along the line. I don't know how these things happen, but it got lost. You know, I'll never forget the first time Metropolitan Yakubos came out. They had taught the children that after liturgy, as they were processing out after they got there on the other, they would sing a song. We are Orthodox Christians. I thought, oh boy, first time he came out there and he heard this is it. We're going to be nailed to the wall for this one, okay? Louder, louder, sing it, don't forget it. I mean, and it's still such a fervor in these children about giving on their own level and giving of themselves. It was not just the dollars or the few pennies that we would find in there, but there was also a line on there for, we will assist with the gardening, we will assist with the cutting of the grass, we will assist with this. We taught them time and talent, certainly not for the real young ones, but as they progressed up towards 5th and 6th grade, they all learned that they had to participate. So that's something the Stewardship Committee should really look into and establish for you here, because the same people that we started this program with are the people that are running that parish council now, and stewardship is not a problem. And you are very blessed in this parish to have a lot of people from Metropolis of Chicago. I see a lot of friends here. I see a lot of people that have come from that particular area, which is mine. We have all struggled as parishes, and George and I spent some time at the last parish in the Metropolis of Chicago that's still on news, and it's amazing. St. Constantine and Helen in Palos Hills. It's a reorganization of thought. It's a reorganization of approach. So it's important that you have open communication. We have not been kind as parish councils in the early years of Orthodoxy to our priests. We've had many instances where we've taken the fervor of our priests away, because we used to use this analysis of, Father, you take care of these things in the Yaro, you take care of the spiritual items, and don't worry about us, we will take care of the business portion of the church. And how wrong we have been, because the priest is the leader of the parish, good, bad, or indifferent, because some of the criticisms were well-founded. But at the same time, if you don't have that cooperative effort that George stressed, that sitting together and talking, and understanding the physical presence of a priest, even if he stays and he opens up the meeting and he stays for his half an hour and makes his comments and said, I have another meeting to go toward, doesn't even say anything, he has to leave, that builds the confidence in the stewards and in the parish council. It has to be cooperative. It can no longer be warlike. I said earlier, we learned a lot. We've learned a lot just by coming here again. Well, I want to tell you a story. How many of you feed the hungry out of your parish? How many of you feed the hungry? That's great. How many of you feed the hungry on a holiday? Christmas Day? Thanksgiving? Excellent. Learn from a youth group at my church many years ago. We fed down at the cathedral in Chicago. We had a lot of people from under the street living. We have Lower Webber Drive, we have some lower areas, and people will live there. So we had a strong youth group that, anything you want, Mr. V, don't worry about it, we're gonna carry this, we're gonna take that, we're gonna do this, and they do all the heavy work. And we would prepare the food, but when it came time to serve the food, they did not, in any way, shape, form, work. They sat with the people from under the streets and talked to them and shared a meal with them, which is extremely important. So the involvement all leads into stewardship. You have some natural learning within your parish. You're amazed. We're amazed at what we can learn from our children. We think we're doing the greatest thing in the world, but just watch them. They'll teach you. Are there any other questions on the program? Please. Ask. We're here to serve. Father George.
When you come to a parish, does the parish host you covering all the financial responsibilities as appropriate, or is this a sponsored outreach by the Archdiocese?
Sometimes when we come to a Metropolis, I think the first or second visit, I'm not sure how it's set up again, I have to remember, we cover our expenses. Sometimes it's gratuitously paid for by the Archdiocese, and other times it's out of pocket. When we come to a parish and we do this, we ask the parish to have skin in the game. And we ask them to cover the rooming expenses and the transportation expenses. We think that's fair for many, many reasons. It gives them some viability, and it puts the onus on them to have most of their people at the parish council. We went to this last parish we ran. They have 37 parish council members. And we said, my Lord, what are we going to do with 37 council members? All but 3 were at the first meeting for stewardship, because they had some 1,800 members at that particular parish, and now they're concerned because it's dwindled down to 800 families. Now, there's logistical reasons, because other churches have moved from the city out to the suburbs, which are 12 miles or 8 miles. We're not like the Catholics. We don't have a religious, we don't have a parish line, so it makes it hard. And I thought, well, this is it, because they had no interest in changing. But they have a school, and the school is important to them, and they know right now it's time to take a look, and it's time to make a change. And it's going to be a hard sell. But at least there was a willingness. George challenged the parish council through one of my earlier visits in a letter to them to set their ministries. The lady that's in charge of the stewardship ministry brought 30 people, and they all expressed their intention to serve the parish in this capacity. We did the magic wand. We walk around, we talk to everybody. If you had a magic wand, first of all, tell us what you like about your parish. And the priests were involved, that were there. And the second thing, if you had a magic wand, you'd wave it. And tell us what you'd like to change. And from that, we build on it. But George pointed out very ably many of the things that Father has to be involved in. He certainly has to be involved. You cannot progress without having Father involved. And sometimes there's an unhealthy relationship between the priest and the parish council. We have to address those issues. And we have to be able to help one another understand what these things are caused by and put them to rest so that we can progress forward. So we have a very, open and good relationship with people. Father George.
In the work that we do with the parishes, we've honed in now, and we're dealing with one parish at a time. But that doesn't mean that if we go to a parish and there's a neighboring parish that wants to see what we do and have some people participate, they can come along and be participants along with the leadership of the council as we work with them. So if a parish wants to bring in somebody and share the expense, that's fine. But George and I are both volunteers. His comments about having some skin in the game, I think, is important, because we need the parish council to be willing to at least pick up the airfare and the hotel bill, so that we know they're serious, we know that they want to get something done in their parish, and that's an indication to us about how serious they are. Yes?
Just a question about the pledge process.
Yes.
With the options of people pledging money and their talents, is it
sometimes when we've had this discussion before where, and there's been discussion in our council meetings, what if people just pledge their talents and time, but they don't pledge any money?
That's acceptable. To me, that's acceptable. The reverse is not. With me? So if they're in a hardship position, and we know they're in a hardship position, and they put 0 as a monetary pledge, but they're pledging of their time and their talent, to me, that's an acceptable pledge. However, if they just want to pledge money and no time and talent, that's not acceptable.
All right, so I'll just ask another question. Let's say they're not in hardship. There might be an inclination that some people might think if, well, they work 20 hours a week in the kitchen, 20 hours a month in the kitchen, cooking and this and that. So they might think that we're not going to give as much money as we give another year. So how do you deal with those kinds of issues?
What we're talking about now is getting down to a priority for that individual. And no matter what we do, if they're not prepared to make God their priority in their lives, there's not much you can do about it other than to love them the best way you can and to treat them with the love and respect you would want to be treated with. And I think eventually if they see other people in that same mode, the money will come. We have to have enough faith to know that the money will come. Yes, Father?
You guys are doing tremendous work, thank you. And it's good to see that we've been able to incorporate a lot of these over the last few years from some of your prior contributions as you've kind of developed this. And I'm very, very pleased to see the wonderful growth in this. So thank you for coming and sharing with us. You perked my ears up, though, when you talked about the 0 pledge, because we introduced the stewardship system when I got to my parish 21 years ago. And they were going from dues at the time to stewardship.